Democrats are in shock.
And she was the first. She was the first member of the New York Congressional Caucus to endorse Mamdani.
What Republicans have actually has been good at is making these labels, even though people don't know what they are.
Well, except Trump wasn't trying to, bring about the downfall of Western civilization like some of these socialist candidates are in the Democratic Party.
I would say that one of the things we learned last night is that past the very friendly smile of Zohran Mamdani, he is a ruthless tactician and an ideologue.
At least the ones who consider themselves moderate. Socialist candidates across the nation are not only winning primaries, they're also taking leadership positions in American cities. New York is the latest example, as all of Zohran Mamdani's endorsements won their contest, sending the establishment into a tailspin. Former DNC chair Jamie Harrison, without naming names, argued online, quote,
"Hello, everyone. The American Democratic Party has just received a blow, and not from the Republicans, from their own voters. The Socialists are winning the national primaries. The mayor of New York supported a whole list of candidates, and they all won. Installation is in shock. The Republicans are rubbing their hands. Let's see what's really going on."
If you hate the Democratic Party, then please don't run for our nomination. He said, don't use the party's resources, volunteers, and infrastructure. And he added that if you don't believe in the party, then don't ask its members to carry you across the finish line. An hour later, he clarified that he doesn't care if you're a progressive, a moderate, or a conservative, but he highlighted that there was always an understanding that building a stronger party was part of the job. Senator Chris Murphy responded to that, arguing that the party is the voters and that leaders need to listen to the voters who are demanding that the party be bolder.
The former leader of the Democratic Party has just publicly told his own voters to get out. Not Republicans, your own. The party is not at war with Trump, it is at war with itself. And when that happens, we already know how it ends. Seen in 2016. Only then they were Republicans.
Joining us now in our fifth seat is Jumaane Williams. He's the public advocate for the city of New York. And Jumaane, I wonder if, just to respond to what Jamie Harrison is saying, is he right to say, if you're not a card-carrying Democrat, get out of our party, don't even bother running?
First, I start off every sentence with Nixon 5, so I just have to put that out there.
Okay.
But the truth is, he's incorrect. Like the whole context is wrong. And we keep pretending somehow that the people in power in a lot of places were not folks from outside who came into the party one way or the other, didn't like what was happening, said, I'm going to try to make some change. And that's what's happening here. And quite honestly, what we see happen in New York City is, to me, an extension of what happened from 2008, where people who may not have even bought a black toothbrush voted for Barack Obama. They then voted for Donald Trump. There are people in New York City who voted for Donald Trump and AOC. People have been saying,
Mamdani
that's
after
correct.
That, yeah.
There are people who are saying, we don't want the status quo, we don't want the same message and the same messenger. The party leadership that I belong to has rejected that time and time again, and every decision they've made has led us to Donald Trump, and every decision they made have led us to this point.
This was not said by a Republican. This was said by New York's public advocate, a Democrat. He directly on the live broadcast of CNN accused his own party leadership of bringing Trump to power. Twice. And no one at the table objected.
So my hope is that the party will finally say, let's listen to some messaging that is actually working. Messaging that pushes back against the divisiveness that we've been seeing and hearing.
If there's one thing a political party is going to do, it's to protect the political party as it currently is. And the people who know that the best are perhaps Republicans who experienced it vividly in 2016 when Donald Trump ran for the nomination, and he ran as an outsider, and he shook up the party, and he dispensed with all the establishment types, and then he took over the party with all of his extreme views on all sorts of things. And I call them extreme because that's what Republicans called them at the time. So, I mean, this is actually, in some ways, kind of a Trump playbook.
Well, except Trump wasn't trying to, bring about the downfall of Western civilization like some of these socialist candidates are in the Democratic Party. And so, I mean, look, I'm not a Democrat, but I've been amused at the infighting in New York City today. And some of it is pretty powerful constituencies. I saw a video last night in one of these victory parties of a room full of young white socialists screaming at a television with Hakeem Jeffries on it, who's poised, by the way, to possibly become the first black Speaker of the House, going, "You're next, you're next, you're next." not a great look for the party.
Let's stop here. The room of young white socialists shouts, "You're next," at the person who could become the first black Speaker of Congress in U.S. history. This frame will be in every Republican election commercial in 2026. The Democrats didn't just give the enemy a weapon, they gave him a bazooka and showed him how to use it.
I saw that Mamdani went after the head of the Hispanic caucus as well. I see Tish James is even mad at Mamdani. So there's a lot of splits.
All of a sudden, Republicans are so into identity politics. I'm shocked.
I'll say this.
I am shocked.
You know, a few things here. First, you know, a lot of times in campaigns, we see politicians endorse other candidates, endorse politicians, and that's all they do, right? You get a press release that says so and so just endorsed me. No, this. I would say, you know, Mamdani and his team, which have figured out the formula in New York City, not only endorsed, they campaigned with these candidates. His team was working with these candidates, the team that was so effective in working on social media and getting voters out. Also, let's remember that it was, I think, something like 5% of eligible voters that showed up to vote in yesterday's primary. So very few votes made a very big difference.
I was on the ground speaking to voters. So let me say, it is usually a very few amount of people who make a decision anyway. So the pretending like that is
a party primary.
That's correct.
That's
but I want to be clear. On the ground, what people cared about is affordability. What people cared about was feeling safe and what that means in their community. What people cared about was healthcare. So the construct is incorrect, because I think people care about that across the country, definitely New York City. What the Republican Party has been able to do is say that you don't feel safe, you don't feel like you can afford to pay here because of people you may not like, whether it is trans, whether it is immigrants. What Mamdani and others, by the way, there's always been an issue with class and race when it comes to the left, and we have to address that. But what they have been able to do, that the reason that you can't live in New York City is because of an exploitive economic system. And that economic system is what needs to change.
But can I ask you, though, I thought, I mean, to me, Nydia Velázquez is a progressive.
Yeah.
She is, you know, she's most definitely, and she was in Congress for 34 and a half years.
Correct.
She endorsed somebody to replace her, and that's who Mamdani beat yesterday. Mamdani's candidate beat yesterday. To me, Adriano Espaillat, the first Dominican to be elected to Congress, was an undocumented immigrant also. I don't see them as moderate.
Nydia's legacy should have been more respected. Let's just be clear about that.
And she was the first member of the New York Congressional Caucus to endorse Mamdani.
What Republicans has been good at is making these labels, even though people don't know what they are. And so what I do know is there's a lot of agreement about what people feel and want to be able to afford where they live and want to feel safe and want health care. When we decide these labels, the biggest thing to me about yesterday and the way the direction we have been going is who is going to use their political capital to push past the normal ways of doing business in politics. And that is what voters are saying. I want the person now who is going to push past, I guess the best way to put it may be respectability politics, which we do need, but push past that. So when I get a phone call from a leader of a legislature, or I get a phone call from the executive, I'm going to push past that and say, this is what my constituents.
Over the past 8 months, all of you in this room know how much the Democratic machine has tried to count us out. How at every turn they've underestimated us. And in the words of Shirley Chisholm, even if the establishment machine has done everything in its power to keep our community from having a seat at the table, well, I have some bad news for them. We brought folding chairs.
We brought folding chairs. This is a phrase that will fly around all social networks. And this is exactly the energy because of which the establishment is now in panic, because there is no argument against it. There is money, there are connections, media support is available, and you can't stop it.
All right.
I mean,
the establishment machine, she's going after them.
We're still in the anti-establishment element of our political history, I suppose, in our country right now. But to me, if I'm a Democrat, I'm really wondering, and I'm really concerned about this going beyond just New York, beyond Washington, D.C., because I can assure you, we're going to make the argument to voters, you can either be for less taxes or the party that wants to tax you more, because if you're going to say everything's for free, that money has to come from somewhere.
Well, it already is happening all around the country.
You run the risk of pushing out a lot of highly successful people.
I think what the people like Zoran Mamdani are putting on the table is, do we need a more fair economic system where people at the bottom can do better and not just people at the top? And the reason that message is resonating is because it is a fact that economic inequality has been supercharged in the last 10, 20, 30 years in this country. So that is a fact that's irrespective of where you are in this country. And I think that's why there is a real question of, it's not about, are you going to run socialists everywhere, but is the anger against the establishment, the anger against an economic system that is leaving people worried about what they put in their gas tank and how much money they have for it, is that anger going to fuel candidates that speak to it versus the candidates who just want to maintain the status quo?
I would say that one of the things we learned last night is that past the very friendly smile of Zoran Mamdani, he is a ruthless tactician and an ideologue who wants more people of his ideological bent elected, and he's not satisfied with just being. And he doesn't. And even Nydia Velázquez endorsed him, and he didn't. And the other thing that from last night is, to quote my friend Whoopi Goldberg, I would say to Chuck Schumer, dude, you're in danger, because this I think puts a lot of wind in the sails of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to challenge.
Chuck Schumer under threat in his own state. If AOC goes against him, and last night made it 10 times more real, it will be the biggest political earthquake since Trump went down that escalator. The Democratic establishment is not just losing ground. They are losing the entire map. What starts in New York doesn't stay in New York. This is a wave, and it's already moving to Washington. If you want to be the first to know what happens next, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Like, if you agree that the Democratic establishment is losing control, and write in the comments, do you think AOC will dare to challenge Schumer? See you in the next video.
Was it economic concerns that got Dan Goldman banned from that coffee shop in Brooklyn?
I think, first of all, that was horrible. And so I want to make sure I lift it up. Dan Goldman is a gentleman as far as I'm concerned. I also think it was horrible, the anti-Haitian and anti-black rhetoric, and anti-Muslim rhetoric that occurred with the Chevalier race. But I do think economics is at the root of it, and equality
in that specific instance. But you think it had anything to do with economics?
A lot of specifics, but we need to look at what's happening.
I just want you to admit what was actually behind these congressional races.
We're
talking all around it.
No, we're not. What was behind those races was that people can't afford to live, and the inequality that exists in different spaces.
All right. Okay. Everyone, thank you very much.